Hi guys, so I wanted to show you this very interesting interview with Jonathan Portes, who's a professor of economics and public policy at King's College London. Now he has some interesting comments about Brexit and the post-Brexit scenario for the City of London. So let's hear what he had to say.
Talk about the possibility of a deal at this stage then, Jonathan. As you read the tea leaves at this stage, do you think actually there are enough other issues now on the table, like the pandemic and the issues of unemployment and the long tail that we may have from this crisis, that will focus negotiators' minds ultimately, and we will get some form of partial agreement, at least by the deadline at the end of the year?
I think it is genuinely a toss-up at the moment. The outlines of a possible deal have been clear for some time. They involve both sides making politically painful concessions on fisheries. It involves the UK accepting some degree of discipline over state aids and other level playing field issues, and so on. So we know what the outline of a possible deal looks like. The question is whether either side feels it has the political space to make the necessary compromises and concessions, and in particular, given that the UK is clearly the weaker negotiating partner here, it's really the ball is in the UK's court as far as the EU is concerned. They're not sufficiently worried about the consequences of a no deal to make those concessions first. They're waiting up for us to make clear that we are prepared to make some pretty significant concessions on both fisheries and on the issue of state aids. Now, I think it is possible the UK will do that, but it is, as I say, far from certain, and at the moment it looks like at best a toss-up.
Can I ask you about the role of the city at this stage then, and where you see that going in the course of some agreement? Because there's been a lot of toing and froing as to whether Paris was being established as a rival financial hub, or would it be Frankfurt, and so on and so on. And yet we know at this point, with the transmission mechanism through the banking system working so poorly across Europe at this stage, the liquidity that London provides is still important for corporate funding in the rest of continental Europe. Will at some point sensible heads prevail and come up with all the appropriate passporting deals that need to be done? Or is this going to be a problem running into next year?
No, deal or no deal, there's not going to be any passporting arrangements. What will happen is that the EU will unilaterally, through equivalence or some other mechanism, ensure that continental Europe does continue to have access to the City of London and to that funding. But it will get gradually over time, not on December 31st, but over time, it will become slightly more and more difficult, and it will be more and more important for firms to shift at least some of their operations to the continent. So I think, the European strategy on this has been reasonably clear for some time. It's not a sudden big bang. It's boil the frog slowly, with the objective over time of relocating a significant proportion of activity from London to the continent. Some of that has already happened. More and more will happen, but it will be over time, and it won't be a big bang. And in the meantime, the EU will, not through this deal, but unilaterally ensure that that there isn't some sort of big choke point on December the 31st.
I've been saying this for a while now, that Boris Johnson wants to get some type of deal with the European Union so he can return to Parliament and win some type of political victory. Now, he's only interested in maintaining his position. He's not actually interested in protecting the United Kingdom. Now, what's also interesting, and this has been brought up on a number of occasions, is the idea of the transition period being extended, but not for Britain as a whole, but just for the City of London. And in a way, this would make sense following the comments of Jonathan Portes. If the City of London has an extension period extended, this would mean that the likelihood of other countries, the capitals, for example, Paris or Frankfurt, those financial districts, copying or taking business away from London, the City of London, would be put off in a sense. If there's an extension to the transition period, it would mean that these financial hubs would have to wait for their grab, their seizure of the powers of the City of London later on down the road. This would protect, of course, the City of London. And you have to remember that Boris Johnson is more interested in protecting the City of London than he is protecting British industry, because those are the people who have been funding and donating to the Conservative Party. Not small businesses, not individuals. It's the City of London. It's the billionaires, the multimillionaires who are investing money all the time in that district. Those are the people who have been funding the Conservative Party, and those are the ones who have been speculating on Brexit. I think at the end of the day, Boris Johnson is probably going to eventually get a deal with the European Union, return to Parliament, present it to the Brexiteers as a victory, while the EU itself is playing the long game. The EU is in no hurry to have a deal. The EU, I think, is willing to give Boris Johnson some concessions, but in return get major concessions from him. Boris Johnson's concessions will be in order just to pacify the Brexiteers, to show the British public, see, I have won, I have defeated the European Union, while the European Union is willing to sit back and allow the UK to destroy itself, unfortunately. I've talked about this before, how while the UK was a member of the European Union, there was mutual respect to a certain extent. Now that the UK has left, the gloves are off. The European Union is not going to treat the UK like a member. It's going to treat it like a rival. And it's going to do whatever it can in order to protect itself and to benefit from this chaos. So once again, I believe that Boris Johnson later on in the year is going to get some type of deal with the UK, with the European Union, a bare bones deal, not a comprehensive deal. And somewhere written in the fine print will be some sort of extension to the transition period for the City of London in order to protect it from being outsourced, in a sense, to the likes of Paris or Frankfurt. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. Why not become a Patreon and enjoy access to our Discord server where we share news, chat, and have some fun? If you become a patron, you can also make video suggestions on topics that are important to you. Check it out via the link in the description.